past is, and something I've been an advocate for, is I'd like to see us stabilize families longer. Leave them in a place longer, and there's ways we can do that, whether it's doing more online type professional military education so they can stay and not leave the family. But if we can leave the family, and families should go back to the Human Resource Command and say that they do want to stabilize, and if we can keep them there for another year or so, we'd like them to do that. Sergeant Major?
Yes, sir. That's still we definitely want to be able to stabilize our soldiers, make sure they also go back to their chain of command. They can go to HRC, but also go back to your chain of command and say, I'm already on that assignment. And on a case-by-case basis, we're going to look at that so we don't hurt the readiness of any organization. But we do want to stabilize them. You have to just go back, submit a 4187 through your current chain of command that goes to HRC and request to stabilize where you're at right now.
Thank you, gentlemen. Another very popular topic online is the recent announcement that the Army is putting the ACFT on hold or suspending it for the time being. How long do we expect it to be suspended? And is the current APFT still going to be valid?
Yeah, first of all, the Army fitness test is the test that's in place. As many know, the future test is going to be the Army Combat Fitness Test. And we've issued equipment to many of the units. Not all the units have the equipment yet. And so what we will do with the input of the sergeant majors and commanders is we will come to a decision in the future about how we implement the Army Combat Fitness Test. People still have the opportunity to work out right now, and we want their focus to be working on those events that are associated with the Army Combat Fitness Test, because that's the test that actually gets you ready for combat. But as far as when that's actually going to be implemented, it's going to depend that the conditions are set. And by conditions set, that means that all the units have the equipment, all the units have had time to get their soldiers ready to take the test, and when those conditions are set, we'll make that decision. Sergeant Major?
Yes, sir. So currently the APFT is still the test that's going to keep you in good standings with the Army, meaning that if you had failed the APFT, you still have a failed APFT. If you have a current APFT, that's going to carry you until the conditions are set that we can either shift to the ACFT in the near future, but that's not made yet. But if you have a current and valid APFT, that is still what's going to keep you in good standings with the Army.
Thank you, gentlemen. The reserve component obviously is playing a big fight of the National Guard and the Army Reserves. Mr. Secretary, you mentioned 19,000 soldiers deployed, a great many of them being from the reserve component. Has it been worked out that they are entitled and have the same benefits as their active duty counterparts?
Yes, there was initially, when they were working out the paperwork with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, what they have to do is a state comes forward, New York, and they declare a public health emergency or a natural disaster, and they request federal support. And they have it's a legal mechanism called Title 32 where they can put a National Guard unit under a federally funded status, and it provides maximum latitude for the governor in this case to exercise all of the capabilities necessary to respond. When they were working out the paperwork for the mission assignment, initially it didn't have the appropriate number of days to get north of 31 days where they can have all of the benefits. The Army staff was very helpful in working this out with the Office of Management and Budget, and now it is all north of the 31 days required, so all of those benefits should be provided to all of these guardsmen that are out on the front edge. Anything you want to add, Chief?
I just want to just kind of highlight what a fabulous job our Army National Guard and our Army Reserves are doing. And they are in the communities doing some incredible work, and they are really making a difference.
Grooming standards is a topic that for both male and female. Can you clarify what the current policy is for the Army grooming standards for female and male haircuts now that the barbershops are closed? And is there any intention to implement a relaxed grooming standard?
I'm going to let the Sergeant Major talk about that. A little about that, because that's a
I
good
was flipping it to one of you two.
discussion. But what the Sergeant Major will talk about is when people talk about relaxed grooming standards, you have to start from what the standard is, and then we can have the discussion. So Sergeant Major, the bearer of the standards,
Yes,
why don't
sir.
you go ahead and take that one?
I think everybody just needs to know what the standard is. And I'll speak to my sergeant majors and my NCOs. Know what the standards are, and maybe not go overboard. I say, oh, I want to make it sure it's extra close and high and tight. Know what the standard is. The standard is neatly groomed. When your hair, for males, when the hair is combed, it doesn't fall on the eyebrows. It's not on the ears. I know you're wanting more, but it's very clear in what the regulation says. But sometimes we want to, and we always want to overachieve on the standard. On this one, I think we just need to understand what the standards are. I think when you read what the standards are and don't read into it and just follow that guidance, I think we're going to be fine. And I think for the females, it's short, medium, and long hair, different styles. There may be a little bit more flexibility. There's no need to change what those standards are. But like I said, I think if we just follow those guidance of what the actual standard is, I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, so as the Sergeant Major said, what the intent is meet the standard that's in the regulation. And then if there's a problem with meeting the standard, the idea that your hair is over your ears or your hair is over your eyes, we can have that discussion. And probably issue a pair of scissors to the people that have that
So
issue.
you would be exceeds, you meet.
I meet the standard.
Everybody needs the standard.
Thank you, gentlemen. The Department of Defense, a week or so ago, or about 10 days ago, also issued a hold on redeploying units. For the most part, with the exception of Afghanistan in some cases. How long should units who are deploying or redeploying from either a combat deployment or a named operation deployment or a training exercise expect to be in a holding pattern?
Well, I think I'll go and take that one. Each unit's going to be in a different situation. I would say that the intent is to get units back from training exercises as soon as the exercise is over, or if there's a change in conditions for them to come back. And when they do come back, we need to make sure that they go through the proper screening and quarantine exercises to make sure that we protect them and protect their families when they come back. As far as for combat operations right now, some troops are staying longer, and I just want to go out to the families of those troops that they are doing incredibly important work. Some have had to stay longer than what maybe their 9 months was going to be, and what I can say is they are really making a difference. And as soon as their mission is complete, we will get them back and get them with you. But again, they are really making a difference. What they're doing is very, very important, and we are extremely proud of them and proud of the families who are supporting them while they are deployed.
Sir, you mentioned quarantine. When they do come back, is there a set period of time for their quarantine? Is it still the 2 weeks, or has it been?
It is 14 days. That seems to be the safe figure with no symptoms of 14 days. What we're trying to do right now is get more testing out. And I think what you're going to see over the next couple of months, we're going to be in a much more robust position to do more testing, which is going to help us manage the force better under these conditions.
Another question we have is related to the PME, particularly the enlisted side, whether it be SLC or MLC. We know that USMA has gone to virtual schooling. We know that the War College has done that a little bit. From the NCOES side, is there a plan to go virtual there or suspend any of that particular schooling?
Yeah, absolutely. And not the United States Military Academy, but the United States Sergeant Major's Academy has gone to virtual. They're doing, even though they have PCS there, they're using blackboard.com to keep up with their studies. And also found that we could actually still do BLC. We did a couple of virtual BLCs where we would do a VTC from Italy up to Germany at a 7th ATC. So BLC, the Basic Leader course, and the United States Army Sergeant Major's Academy are still going on virtually. we have actually suspended the Select, Train, and Educate, Promote policy for ALC and SLC, the Advanced Leaders course and the Senior Leaders course. So those sergeants that are eligible and good standing with all the qualifications, meet the cutoff score, they will be promoted to Staff Sergeant. And those Staff Sergeants that are eligible, that need to be promoted, they will get promoted to Sergeant First Class. There's two ways that you can make up the PME, the Professional Military Education. They can actually go back and take the class once we move the stop move, or your unit can go in and say, I've done all the critical tasks, I've been in a squad leader position, and I can ask to be promoted without the course. So there are two ways: an exception to policy to get promoted without the course for ALC and SLC, or you can go back and actually do the school.
Thank you. And following up on that, Sergeant Major, the promotion boards in general, particularly the local ones, are they still ongoing? How have they been affected by this situation in your conversation with the NCOs?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, so promotion boards are still going. We can do them virtually. I mean, I'll echo what the chief has said. We have learned some things that we could do, and all across, where it's a virtual board, where it's a virtual re-enlistment. We've seen those two. So you can still submit the package for the board. The battalion commander still has to sign on the board. So the sergeant major could have you do a virtual board. You can do board packets, and that's all within the authorities of the battalion commander at the appropriate level. So the boards are still happening. Soldiers are still re-enlisting. We're just finding great and new creative ways to do this. And I agree with the chief. This is going to really show what we can do in the future if we have to.
News yesterday indicated that, or news from TRADOC yesterday was that they plan to make some adjustments to initial entry training, particularly on the shipment end, and obviously as they organize the first couple of weeks of basic training. How exactly is basic training and the shipment recruits being affected by COVID-19?
Now, this gets back to all about how do we take care of soldiers that are coming to the Army. You know, their parents are sending us their sons and daughters, and what we want to do is make sure that we're providing an extremely safe environment. So what we've done is we're pausing for 14 days, and that'll allow really for the situation in the country to settle down. It's also allowing us to get all the testing capability into our initial entry military training sites. And so we're doing that right now as we speak. And so as the soldiers come into initial military training, they will be segregated, they will be screened, we'll make sure that they go into this protective bubble, they'll be doing physical fitness, and then we'll be we'll have the testing in place to make sure there's no issues with any exposure to COVID-19, and then they will go through the normal training that they've done. And then even when they move from these bases, we're again putting them in a protective bubble, allowing them to move on to their follow-on assignments and training. And by doing this, we think we're going to be able to take care of all these young men and women that are coming into the military in the best way.
Hey, sir, I'd like to just remember the Army's still open. We're still doing active recruiting. The recruiting stations may be closed, but we're doing virtual recruiting. So if anybody that's out there that's ready to join the Army, we're still open for business. We're still bringing those in. We're just finding new and creative ways to do our virtual recruiting. And we're pausing on the sessions coming in, but we're still doing the sessions training. Basic training are still going, and the Army is still open for business.
So we made an initial decision to pause for 2 weeks. Do we think we're going to be able to turn it back on in 2 weeks, or we're going to have to reassess that?
No, we do. We feel very comfortable with the procedures that we have in place. And what we've also done, which we've never done in the past, is if a soldier is unable to ship, they've gone through the entire process and they're ready to ship, and they come from an area that we're not shipping from, we will basically put them on the payroll and allow them to be compensated, basically reporting to the recruiting station. They can continue the workout and get fit, and then we'll bring them in the Army when the conditions allow them to be shipped. And again, this is a good time to join the Army. You get to be part of something bigger than yourself. You get to be part of one of the most respected teams in the country, and you get a part to really make a difference. So as the Sergeant Major said, as the Army's open, we're still hiring. We're asking soldiers that may be leaving, going to a very difficult situation, if they'd like to stay and they meet the standards, then they can stay. I don't know if you want to say anything on that, Sergeant Major.
Yes, sir. If they want to extend, we got a 12 months extension that can say, I don't feel like it's a good time to get out of the Army. If you meet all the standards to stay in the Army, just go back and see your retention NCOs, see your chain of command, and they'll go ahead and do that extension paperwork.
It's important to also emphasize that General Muth and Sergeant Major Gavia had been performing so well, that command is performing so well with recruiting, that they have margin in their objective for the year. So that even with this down month, taking this tactical pause to set the conditions, we believe that we're still in very good shape. You know, touch wood as I say that, but they've found a way to really manage every soldier from hotspots in the country to defer their timing and to bring them in as safely as possible. Really a remarkable job by USAREC.
So speaking of USAREC, the new virtual recruiting programs and tactics that are obviously in place because of this. One of the questions is, how long are the recruiting stations going to be closed? And two, how are those tactics and those programs going, given the current recruiting environment?
Well, they'll be reopened when the conditions are such to be safe enough to get back into the office. But I think it's important to the points that the chief and the SMA have made repeatedly. We're finding different ways, and they're also becoming very effective. It may change the business model over time of how we recruit people. Less of the brick and mortar, more of the virtual, and then ultimately when they go to sign a contract, they meet face to face. We've learned a lot from this next generation, and they spend a lot of their time in the virtual space, and that's how we find means to communicate with them. Chief, anything you want to add?
No, I think Secretary, you said exactly right. Is you know, out of every crisis is opportunity and an opportunity to learn, and so what we want to do is take a look at the way we've been doing business, which in some ways has been industrial age, and we want to move into the information age, and what we're finding is where those information technologies are most effective. And we're going to take advantage of that. We're going to learn from that, and we're going to grow.
Another hot topic on Folks for Families are obviously the child development centers, just like everything else, are affected on some of the installations. Why are some CDCs closing on some posts and then they're open on others? What's the variance there?
Well, I'll take that. I mean, what we've done is, again, we're looking at protecting the soldiers in their families. And I looked at the number. I think we have about 200 and maybe 40 or 50 that are still open. There are some closed. I know that's very difficult on the families that use them, but it's really managing risk. We have child development centers open for mission essential personnel and first responders that actually need that. And then at the same time, some are closed, and it's really come down to protecting the people that are taking care of our kids and making sure the kids are safe too. And what we want to do is provide a safe environment. And so, Major, you have anything you want to add on that?
Yes, sir. Even though some of the CDC codes, I'd ask if you're struggling with, you know, how to get to work and how to take care of my children, and communicate with your chain of command. And sometimes we do want to be mission focused, and I applaud all those folks. I would just ask those that are having trouble where your CDC is closed, don't try to go at this alone. There's a lot of people that are out there to help you, and go back and say, I'm torn. My spouse in their civilian job may be mission critical. I heard this one yesterday. My spouse is mission critical, but then my Army job says I'm mission critical too. Go to your chain of command and explain that to them, and don't try to take that hardship on your own. And I'm certain that we'll make the right choices.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce what the Sergeant Major said. We have an obligation during tough times to take care of our families, and they are a priority, and it's about people first. And so we should be able to work our way through those type of challenges.
One final question, gentlemen. I know there's been questions about the testing capability that the Army has. Could we get an elaboration on exactly the testing capabilities we have at our MTFs, either CONUS, OCONUS, and deployed?
Yeah, you know, what we've done is we're in the process of really ramping that capability up. We have 9 labs that we can test at, but there's new machines coming on board, one called a BioFire that we're setting down range into all our critical sites where you can test on the spot. We got these Gen X, both 4 and 16 that are coming online. They're going to, you know, give us increased throughput. And then there's a large machine, it's called a Panther Fusion machine that really is going to give us the capability that we need. What you really want is a lot of throughput, you know, a throughput capability so you can do a lot of testing, and that's how you safeguard the force. And all those machines are coming in. They're probably not, they didn't come as quick as we like them. And another test we're looking at, which we think is really important, the testing machines that I talked about, they tell you whether you have it or not. What I'm interested as the chief and I know the secretary and sergeant major is, have you had it? You know, we may have had soldiers that already had it, that had no symptoms, and we won't know. So there's testing that's coming out, not here yet, but it will show whether you've actually had the virus, and that will help us manage risk in the force.
The only thing I would add to the chief's points is that the U.S. government put in place essentially a nationwide prioritization. So many of the machines that were in the U.S. government's inventory went to New York and went to New Jersey and some of these hardest hit areas in the country. But to the points that the chief made, there's a tremendous amount of capability flowing into the Department of the Army over the next 3 weeks. And we'll have this at all of our installations in a very robust capacity across the force.
Well, gentlemen, that's all the questions that we have. Thank you for your time. I'll turn it over to the 3 of you for any final comments.
Give us somebody the last word.
Yes, Sergeant Major?
Okay, so I'd just like to say, you know, life kind of just threw us a curveball. And that's just kind of the way life is. It's not always the fastball right down the middle. This is a little bit of curveball. You know, we've got the greatest army in the world, and we're just going to have to adjust. You're going to adjust your goals, reestablish new goals. You know, reconnect with your family. Find some things that motivate you through this time of need or crisis. You know, and a good friend of mine told me one time. He said, "This uniform around the world means 2 things. Right now, depending on where you're at, this uniform means hope. It means hope that when the United States Army, active, Guard, or Reserve show up, that my situation in the United States is going to get better. But it still means fear around the world too. That means if you mess with the United States Army, that this uniform will come, and we have to be ready to strike fear in our adversaries."
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.